So IGN tweeted this, asking for the most unpopular opinions in gaming. And I'm going to steal the replies for content now. God of War 2018 sucks. I've actually kind of talked about this before, once or twice. I really don't like God of War 2018. I don't think it sucks. I think it's a good game, but I also think it's trying way too hard to be serious. I think it's one of the most pretentious games in Sony's lineup. And also, I think it completely turns its back on what made God of War good in the first place. A lot of game franchises have a really annoying tendency to feel the need to shake things up in order to, adapt with the modern times, but their definition of adapting to the modern times is being a pretentious third-person action game. I don't think it's a bad game, but I just don't find it fun. And I think in the grand scheme of God of War games, I think God of War 2018 is lower tier. GTA has gotten progressively worse since Vice City. Was Vice City before Vice City was before San Andreas, right? I mean, you can debate over whether or not Vice City or San Andreas is better. I would say GTA has gotten progressively worse since GTA 4. I think GTA 4 has a fantastic story and has a great world. I think Liberty City is a fantastic sandbox, but the gameplay of GTA 4 is a bit of a drag. And it's the same way I feel with GTA 5. I think GTA 5 has, slightly better gameplay than 4, but the story definitely outshines the actual gameplay. Just running around GTA open worlds used to be so fun, but in the modern games, it's still fun, but there's just something about the current GTA engine that makes them a lot less fun than they could be. Open world Bethesda games are super slow and boring. Pokemon is easily beaten with zero knowledge of strategy. Halo is literally just COD without the amazing graphics. Fortnite is super fun to play and a good laugh with friends. Oh dear. Okay. Let's go one by one. Open world Bethesda games are super slow and boring. If we're talking about Bethesda's own developed games, I think there was a point where that became true. And I think that cutoff was Skyrim. Arguably before, arguably after. But I really think Skyrim was the last Bethesda developed open world game that we could uncontroversially say was good. Better than Oblivion, but I always do get a hoot out of one of the best Bethesda open world games being New Vegas, which Bethesda didn't make. Pokemon is easily beaten with zero knowledge of strategy. Spoken like someone who has never actually beaten a Pokemon game before. I mean, the early game of pretty much any Pokemon game doesn't take any strategy. No, you learn a single move. Yes, like you say, you learn a single move that works against the opponent and spam it over and over again. That works for the first few hours, but if you only do that, then you end up fucking yourself for the rest of the game. That kind of is the strategy of a Pokemon game. Because if you fall into that loop of just leveling up that one Pokemon and getting that one move really, really good, eventually that one move isn't going to work, and now you have a shitty lineup of secondaries. You can get pretty far in a Pokemon game by doing the single move strategy, but you're not going to finish a game like that. Halo is literally just COD without the amazing graphics. Modern Halo, yes. Old Halo, no. Modern Halo is it's kind of just shittier COD. And how depressing is that? Because modern COD is yikes. But no, I mean, Bungie Halo versus COD was extremely different, but 343 Halo versus COD, it really just depends on the game, because neither of them are great showings. Fortnite is super fun to play and a good laugh with friends. Honestly, I can kind of agree with this. The way Fortnite is meant to be played, like Fortnite BR, is not fun. But the sandbox modes of Fortnite and goofing around with the tools Fortnite gives you, that is fun. I'll give you that. It's a little depressing that the worst way to play Fortnite is the way it's supposed to be played, but it is worth something when the game also gives you the tools to have more fun with it. I've always said that I've never at any point thought Fortnite was a legitimately good, well-designed game, but it's always had a certain level of fun to it. And while that fun is no longer in the main game mode, I know a lot of people really love the creative mode. I can't really fault them for that. The game itself has a good foundation. It's just a shame what the devs have been doing with it. The Last of Us 1 is the most overrated game of all time. Terrible AI, repetitive gameplay, predictable story, 100% not a 10 out of 10 game. Graphically, it's great. It's original, but it's not 10 out of 10, and I will die on that hill.
What you just said is
correct. To this day, I'll never understand The Last of Us praise. I mean, it's a decent game. It's decent. It really is just kind of Walking Dead Season 1, but with pretentious Naughty Dog gameplay. The writing is great, the mocap is great, the graphics are great, the animations are great, but like with a lot of story-driven games, there's like a internal conflict with a lot of people, and me too, where the gameplay is not very fun, but the story is what keeps you going. For me, the first Last of Us was the most conflicted I've ever been with that internal debate. I ended up finishing it, and this was a long time ago, but by like the 7-8 hour mark, I really did not want to play anymore. It's just a boring game to play. Like I said, the world is great, the writing is great, the story is not as good as people say, but it's very well presented. But the gameplay, God, it is just boring. It feels like there's no real escalation. And it's not even that I have anything against like third-person action games. It's not like I have anything against stealth games. It's not like I have anything against, cover-based shooters. But it's just, for how much time you spend in gameplay in The Last of Us, it really does not feel like things escalate or progress past a certain point, which is disappointing. I prefer a real character to that choose-your-own character games. I hated Odyssey for that. Also, it was bloated as fuck. Origins is better. Oh boy. One of my favorite games of all time is The Witcher 3, which is not a choose-your-own-character RPG. However, it is also the only not choose-your-own-character RPG I've ever enjoyed. RPGs are supposed to be really personal experiences, so it makes sense for you to make your own character. Making a player character in an RPG with a set backstory and a set personality, that's really, really difficult. I guess you can say this is my own hot take, but I think The Witcher 3 is the only game I've ever played that did that properly. The Witcher 3 is the only RPG I've ever played where a completely player-created character was not the best option. I think in theory, you're right, but in execution, it's just astronomically hard to do that. And then as for your Origins and Odyssey, they're both terrible. So I don't have a lot to say about that. Also, I just looked over at the trending tab. The NFL is trending in football. Thank you, Twitter. Very cool. Splatoon 2 bad. We don't owe Nintendo. I bet your cock is fucking gigantic. Splatoon 2 bad. We don't owe Nintendo shit. Valve's company structuring is poor. Epic gets too much shit. DMC was a pretty good game. Fortnite over Minecraft. I don't think Splatoon 2 was bad. I think Splatoon 2 was just grossly overpriced for the amount of content you got. Splatoon 2 could have just been a DLC, but it's Nintendo, so of course it wasn't. We don't owe Nintendo shit. Absolutely, we do not. I am so tired of all the people defending Nintendo, especially with all the stuff that's been going on behind the scenes with Smash, and with Melee, and with Slippy, and with fucking everything regarding competitive Smash. I haven't talked about it much recently, but but competitive Melee is one of my favorite things on the planet. So I've wanted to make a video about the whole save Melee and the whole save Smash thing going on right now. I just haven't really felt like I've had a good, unique take on it, so I haven't done that. But yeah, no, TLDR, fuck Nintendo, free Melee, save Smash. Valve's company structuring is poor. I don't know what you mean by that, because Valve is incredibly successful at what they do. So I'm not sure how that's poor. Epic gets too much shit. No, Epic gets just the right amount of shit. They'll stop getting shit once they stop doing shit like this, and this, and this, and this, and this.
Hypocrisy. The practice of engaging in the same behavior or activity for which one criticizes another.
Epic gets just the right amount of shit, and if they want to stop getting shit, they should probably change their behavior. DMC Devil May Cry was a pretty good game. Honestly, I agree. I really agree with this. I like DMC. I don't think it's amazing. I don't think it's on the level of like DMC 5 or DMC 1. But I like it. It's a decent game. It's different. It has a really unique style. Like, I hated the characters, but the world and the gameplay were really fun. I liked it. Fortnite over Minecraft.
No.
Death Stranding is a masterpiece.
No.
1. Couldn't get into Fallout 4 at all. Yeah, Fallout 4 is not great. Assassin's Creed Unity is good and one of the best in the franchise. The Last of Us Part 2 is better than The Last of Us Part 1, and I liked Abby more than Joel by the end. To me, I just get so much enjoyment out of watching people argue about the Last of Us games. I get so much enjoyment out of it because I'm completely disconnected from it. I have no attachment to the first game, and I had no desire to play the second. So for me, it's just entertaining watching people go at each other so passionately about these two games. I'll never understand it. Maybe one day I'll play part 2. Maybe one day I'll replay part 1. I probably won't do either of those things, but it's just entertaining to watch people yell about it. Halo has never been fun campaign-wise and was only fun during Halo 3 multiplayer. Pre and post that is all trash.
No way. We got you. Not a chance. Not this time. Wrong.
Last of Us stinks. Again, with Last of Us stuff. Switch is potentially the greatest system ever. No. It's a good system. It has a lot of merit to it, but I can still just list off so many things off the top of my head that are wrong with the Switch. Like, when is Nintendo gonna let me play GameCube games again? Remember the virtual store on the Wii, on the original Wii? It might have been on the Wii U as well. But the digital store on the original Wii was great. The backwards compatibility and the retro capabilities of the Wii U were fantastic. Now the Switch comes along, and it's like Nintendo doesn't give a fuck about their history anymore. If they fix that, I could be on your side. Switch could be the Switch has the potential to be one of the best systems ever. Right now, I think it has potential. It has potential to be one of the best systems ever. Is it there yet? No. There's a lot of work that needs to be done, and modern Nintendo is not going to do that work. Moving on. Repetitive online multiplayer is dumb. Isn't all online multiplayer repetitive? Like, just by definition, isn't all multiplayer repetitive? Repetitive isn't inherently bad. Repetition is what makes something more fun. Repetition is what makes things more competitive. Who can do these actions better? And if you aren't doing the actions better, you know what you can do to improve them. How can you improve them? What ways can you change your game plan to achieve this goal? I mean, it's the same concept as sports. If we're gonna say online multiplayer is repetitive and dumb, then sports are repetitive and dumb. And speaking of sports games should only come out every 3 to 5 years. Completely on your side. Sports games need to take a fucking break. Halo over COD. Didn't you just say multiplayer is dumb? Also, Avengers is a good game, but fun story games aren't popular. Fun story games aren't popular. Best-selling games 2019. Luigi's Mansion 3, Yoshi's Crafted World, Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening. Also, Breath of the Wild, Witcher 3, Doom Eternal, Animal Crossing. Animal Crossing is not really a story game. Look, I'm willing to waive the whole Avengers is a good game thing if we can agree that fun story games are popular. I really don't know where you're getting that. Halo sucks. Witcher 3 sucks. Ratioed by Geralt. Holy shit, he was. Far Cry is the only Ubisoft franchise worth the time. I mean, honestly, at this point, you're kind of onto something. Horizon Zero Dawn was incredibly dull. Yep, I agree with that. I really don't understand the COD hype. Getting verbally abused and killed every 5 minutes by kids is not my idea of verbally abused, bro. Come on. I mean, yes, absolutely. I don't understand the COD hype either. I thought COD would have died by now. I mean, Warzone is good. I like Warzone a lot, but it still blows my mind that the last 4 or 5 Call of Duty games have been C+ at best games, and yet they're still dominating sales every single year. That I just don't understand. But if you don't want to get verbally abused and killed every 5 minutes, maybe get good. Square Enix is fucking ass when it comes to anything. I really wish more people thought this. Square Enix, what even is their thing? You know what I mean? What is their thing? Final Fantasy? Well, Final Fantasy's shit now. Kingdom Hearts is shit now. Aside from Final Fantasy, what even is Square Enix? Square Enix games. Avengers, dude, this is fucking depressing. You Google Square Enix games, you get Final Fantasy, Avengers, Final Fantasy, Kingdom Hearts, Tomb Raider, and then Chrono Trigger, 95. Guys, can we do something else? They also make Just Cause and Nier Automata. Okay, yeah, you guys got lucky with Nier Automata. Who let you guys have that? Breath of the Wild deserved almost none of the praise it received. Completely true. People focused way too much on praising the ability to climb everything and forgot to criticize the game for having very few enemy types, a horrendous weapon durability mechanic, and one of the least interesting and cliched stories in gaming. I'm sure I'll get a spicy comment about this one. Sonic Unleashed isn't that good. And he's getting ratioed. I forgot Gaming companies don't release fresh ideas because the fans complain way too much, so we get stuck with remakes and remasters. Honestly, that's a damn good point. With the rise of the internet and the rise of social media and how much people just fucking bitch about everything. In before joke about Joe from Seattle complaining about people bitching about things. It really does sometimes seem like no matter how good or original a game is, it can get shit on for the most unimportant thing. I think it's a mix of companies wanting to play it safe as much as they can with something that they know people like, but also with how big gaming is, companies wanting to make more money off of a game that was loved, but also didn't make as much money because it was released at a time when the industry was smaller. Does that make sense? I think it's both of those. I think it's the desire for companies, yes, to play it safe and like earn people's good graces, but also the desire to double dip. People only say Bloodborne is better than Dark Souls 3 because it's a PlayStation exclusive. Or it's just a better game. Halo is, and always has been, a Duplo basic FPS with middling gameplay, bland design, and a wholly derivative story that's impressive only to people who have never been outside the console ecosystem. So it's hard to talk about Halo sometimes because if you had said this about modern Halo, I'd be in your corner. Modern Halo is a Duplo basic FPS with middling gameplay and a derivative story. But classic Halo, absolutely not. This game got big for a reason. This series got big for a reason. Halo's gameplay is extremely good, or it was. I hate talking about Halo in the past tense, it just makes me sad. But Halo was extremely unique. It had a really similar feel to Doom and to classic FPS games, but with a bit of a slower pace and more of a methodical approach. You couldn't just run in and, shoot everything and it would be fine. The story of Halo was also really, really good until it was, pooped on. Naughty Dog does not make games. They make overglorified interactive movies, and you guys consistently rate them 10 out of 10. Gameplay is atrocious, most stories are cliched or ripped straight from other media. Worst part is they threw away Jak and Daxter. If you want some of my hot takes, I think Naughty Dog is one of the most overrated studios in gaming. But I think they are extremely good at what they do, and I recognize that what they do isn't always up my alley. Like I said before, I like cover-based shooters, I like third-person action games, I just don't like being constantly interrupted by stories I've heard before. And that's where Naughty Dog falls short for me. But goddamn, I miss Jak and Daxter. Halo 4 and 5 are dog shit, Halo 3 was always the best in the series. They said unpopular.
I give it to you. You got me there.
Right. Resident Evil 4 isn't a good Resident Evil. It's just a fun action-adventure game. The lore is barely there, and it traded creepy and grounded for over-the-top and cheese. Have you played RE4? Resident Evil 4 is very disconnected from the rest of the series. I agree with you there about the lore, but I would argue that's a good thing, because the Resident Evil lore is over the top and cheese. What? Resident Evil 4 is the best game in the series for a million reasons, but I find it funny that you say that the lore, you say it's a bad thing that the Resident Evil lore isn't really in RE4. RE4 is more of just a standalone game. Like, you can play RE4 without having played any other Resident Evil game and you'd completely understand it. Like, it's an almost completely disconnected story. And that's part of why it's so good, because the Resident Evil lore is dog shit. It's just cheese and dog shit, which is why that's why it's funny to me. You say you imply it's bad that the lore isn't in RE4, but then you also say it's bad that RE4 is cheesy. And look, RE4 is creepy. RE4 is an extremely creepy game. It's one of the only games I've ever played that actually managed to do action horror properly. If you guys have been watching me for a while, you know how picky I am with horror games. Horror is one of my favorite genres, but I also only ever have played like a handful of horror games I think are good, because it's extremely difficult to do horror properly. RE4 does horror properly. Witcher 3 is boring, monotonous bullshit. I'm gonna come steal your mailbox. I really hate all Mario 3D games. To be fair, Galaxy and Sunshine are the only good ones. Resident Evil 7 just seemed like an Outlast clone, and I actually miss the tank controls. I hate when people say the games are Outlast clones. Outlast is literally a clone of Amnesia. Like, at least call them Amnesia clones. But the thing with RE7 is RE7 was kind of an Amnesia clone, but it made a few really important changes. And like I've said it before, I loved RE7. I thought RE7 was is the second best game in the series behind 4. And again, much like 4, it's a completely isolated story. You can play RE7 without having played any other Resident Evil game and completely understand it. Are you sensing a trend here? Resident Evil is at its best when it doesn't concern itself with the dog shit lore. Days Gone was the best game of 2019. Dude, Days Gone came out. I forgot Days Gone came out. And I'll close out with this. These new Assassin's Creed games are the first games in the series that I just can't get into. I feel like the worlds are huge with not a lot in them, and the game gets in the way of itself from telling the story. I'm actually so glad someone said this because I feel like a crazy person sometimes. Like scrolling through Twitter, like looking at the opinions of my colleagues with new Assassin's Creed. I don't think Assassin's Creed has been good since 4. I think the last actually good, like objectively good Assassin's Creed game was Black Flag. I think everything since then has been either mediocre or just bad. As with the new one, I can't get into the new ones at all. Like starting with Origins, the whole like open world kind of RPG, but not really RPG, except sometimes it is an RPG. Like I just can't get into them. It's so boring. And I feel like a crazy person talking about it sometimes because I just don't see what people see in it. With other games that I don't like, and I mean, The Last of Us is a good example. I don't enjoy The Last of Us, but I see why people do. You know what I mean? I completely understand why people like The Last of Us. But the new Assassin's Creed games, I just don't get it. What do you see in them? Just play The Witcher 3 instead. It's better. It's new Assassin's Creed, except good. In every way it can be good. This is my big hot. You ready? This is the hottest take I've got. Ready? Cut the music. This is the hottest take I got, okay? The Witcher 3